everybody that's here. Appreciate those that support this daily effort. This will be a fun conversation. Chris and I actually went to the same school pre-college and never really kind of talked too much, but it's funny how Twitter does get people to reconnect. This will be available on all your favorite podcast platforms under the Lead Lag Live banner. Stay tuned for that. With all that said, my name is Michael Gayed, publisher of the Lead Lag Report. Joining me for the hour is Chris Okada, who knows a little bit about real estate given his family's involvement and, of course, his. Chris, introduce yourself here to the audience. Who are you? How'd you get involved in real estate? Talk about some of the family history and what are you doing now?
Absolutely. Yeah, Michael and I went to the same prep school in Queens, New York, private school. I actually do a lot of business with the alumni at our old alma mater. I don't know if you know that. But anyway, my name is Chris Okada. I'm CEO of Okada and Company, commercial real estate brokerage and development company here in Midtown Manhattan. We own and we represent 43 properties. We have a portfolio of 2 million square feet, mostly in Midtown and downtown Manhattan, or Midtown South, if you will. Started this company in 2005, basically with $30,000, turned that into billions in sales, acquired around 150 million in real estate. And this year we are having a pretty good year with commercial real estate, which is everyone hates office, everyone hates retail. New York City is dead. And I'm going to jump into all of that. And we've accomplished 107 office transactions. That's 107 CEOs that we've worked with establish their office space in Midtown Manhattan, which was supposed to be dead. So we're going to jump into all of the macro trends. And ultimately, my whole goal for coming onto these spaces, other than to introduce myself to new people, new audiences, but really is to give you takeaways for your personal investment. And of course, nothing I say here, you should consult with your financial advisor. This is not investment advice. This is just what we're actually doing. And my family, this is our 1969 to 2022, 53rd year in New York City commercial real estate. My father was very, very well known in the 70s, 80s, and earlier part of the 90s for being the go-to to bring international manufacturers from Japan to the United States. So for anyone that has driven a Toyota, that was our Gen 1 largest clients. We established their North American headquarters at 9 West 57th Street. That was our biggest client. In addition to Toyota Motor Company, we brought over Honda, Sony, Panasonic, Mitsubishi, Suzuki, Kawasaki, and every Fortune 1000 Japanese manufacturers. Again, this is during the 70s and 80s to the United States. And that was really the first iteration of globalization within the world of international manufacturers. And Sony was a huge hit in the 80s, and we helped them establish, as well as Panasonic. 2022 is my 20th year in commercial real estate. My thesis joining the real estate community in New York City was very different. I joined shortly after 9/11, entered the market, wanted to get into banking and finance, but for anyone that tried entering after 9/11, the world of finance, we were in the middle of a recession. The tech bubble had just burst September 11th. And then the bottom was literally in 2022, the minute we all graduated. And so essentially, I work with local and domestic landowners with their occupancy issues as far as office, retail, leasing, investment, development, as a broker. And my sort of claim to fame in the New York City commercial real estate arena was after the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers in 2008. My company was 2 years old. The world was falling apart. But at that point, we really didn't have a lot of equity. We didn't have a lot of risk. We were brand new. So all sites were set on non-performing and distressed large commercial real estate loans. and we represented Lehman Brothers, Citibank, SocGen, which is a French bank, and numerous other smaller banks getting rid of distressed mortgages off their books. They had a lot of pressure from FDIC, a lot of pressure, and had monthly stress tests and all eyes on their balance sheets to see what was left. And I guess when we get into it, we're going to compare 2008 to 2010 to the early 2020s, and I think that it's a very, very, very different set of circumstances that we're in today. And in 2009 to 2010, we did $1 billion of distress in Times Square and Herald Square right here in Midtown Manhattan. And yeah, that's it. So, Michael, thank you so much for having me. It's so incredible the amount of followers that you created, the sort of branding that you created. Even your photo on your Twitter is awesome. With what is it again? Sticks and gold?
Yeah, it's lumber and gold. I put it up when the Bitcoin crowd had nothing but laser eyes all over Twitter. So it was a nice sort of way of pointing fun at that, and I kept it. So it's like, why not? All right, first let's take a step back. So commercial real estate, that's a term that's thrown around a lot. What are the subcategories within commercial real estate, and how different do they tend to be over time?
Great question. Yeah, so the main food groups are multifamily, office, hotel, industrial, and now we're going to start seeing a trend of large portfolios of single family residences as a rental, which is pretty much, I would say, from 2010. It's probably 10 years old as a category. A lot of institutional people are getting into that space, and it's a very controversial asset class to start, but we're going to see a lot of that over the next 10, 20, 30, I think permanently. But yeah, those are pretty much the major food groups. Again, apartment buildings, industrial, hotel, hospitality, office, land in general for land bankers. And then I believe that single family is going to be the next major food group coming up in general.
And of those, which one do you think is kind of the most overvalued relative to everything else?
Yeah, I think that apartment buildings, especially the Sun Belt, for anyone paying attention to this space, to this asset class. I mean, the the capitalization, the unlevered yield of which you could have bought, I would say 5, 6, 7 years ago, values doubled in price, and I think that is one of the toughest and most expensive asset classes. It's starting to ease up. Second to that is actually, I don't know, it may be industrial is first. Industrial, especially with Amazon going just absolutely ballistic over the last 5 years, gobbling up millions and millions of square feet across the country. I think that when you have Amazon as a tenant and you have a 15-year lease, people were paying 3% yields, which I've never really seen that. I seen that in '06 for prime office buildings in Midtown Manhattan. I saw a 2.6% return sell. Why would an investor even purchase a 3% unless it's a life insurance company or something? But really, I would say in 2019, not 2020, but even 2021, the value of these Amazon leased, industrial and warehouse spaces, I mean, people were paying ridiculous numbers, paying more for industrial than an office building. And so that definitely, and it's starting to get a little loose, but no one's really letting go of industrial Amazon, industrial, sort of product with Fortune 500 tenancy. And I think that trend is going to continue as retail online shopping continues to grow. And then the weakest, and then hotels, of course, during the pandemic were struggling. I think that in Midtown Manhattan, I'm not sure about nationwide, but a lot of it's really about RevPAR and average daily room rates. Those are still down comparatively. Miami talk about nationwide, Miami is having the best time ever in all asset classes. So for anyone that entered the South Florida market or the Florida market in general, they won during the pandemic, and that geopolitical stuff, local politics stuff, just the amount of money flowing down south, they really increased all asset classes values. I would say almost double within 2 years. And but throughout the country in general, we're seeing a lot, the Sun Belt, lots of people, Texas did extremely well. And, we really don't want to get into a political discussion, but the local politics of governors and mayors really did have a huge impact on the benefit of Texas and Florida and the South in general. I love, eat, sleep, breathe office. We have for 54 years coming up. And I would say that this is one asset class that is very much a concern. I would think that is probably one of the weakest asset classes as we discuss nationwide, globally, actually. Globally, the office. And then number one was obviously in 2020 with the pandemic. Not a soul in a building in general, in any office building. And then we're climbing back slowly, but we cannot break that 51% occupancy. So, it's been a very slow recovery. But for anyone that is looking to make real impact as far as acquisitions, if you sort of believe that there's a play with these office buildings, now would be the time, because the pricing that we're seeing in Midtown Manhattan, I have not seen since 2010, the bottom of the financial crisis.
Well, I was going to say, right, you got to start seeing some of the prices now go down, I would think. Do you think we're closer to a bottom? I mean, look, it's not just COVID and work from home. Now it's higher rates too.
Yeah, absolutely. The higher interest rate environment for each of the asset classes there's a very different story. For home purchasers, looking for their forever home versus an office investment in a Class C, a smaller building, or a Class B, medium-sized building. Absolutely. I am very big on data. We purchased a property during this downturn because I believe that New York will return. I believe that as long as you buy as low as humanly possible, your chances of success in 2028 to 2032, that era of the recovery, I think that this is an incredible time. I could be very wrong, but I'm betting a lot. And we're seeing in Midtown Manhattan, and for those of you, please excuse me, but I am a commercial real estate professionals look at everything on a price per square foot basis. So if you're looking at a property in Los Angeles and you're looking at a property in Miami and you're looking at a property in New York City, a commercial real estate professional will look at it at, on a price per square foot. And that's how we sort of make our bets and on our purchases. So in Midtown Manhattan, at the peak of the market, let's just say Chelsea, Manhattan, the west side here, Midtown South in the 20s. In 2019, buildings were selling for $1,000 per square foot, plus or minus $100, depending on the quality. This does not include glass towers that you see on TV. This does not include, single story taxpayers. We're talking 6 stories to 12 stories from 15,000 feet to 200,000 square feet. The middle market. Again, not Class A glass towers. But these properties were selling for $900 to $1,100. Let's just say on average $1,000 a foot. We just acquired a building that we were trying to acquire for 7-8 years. We just purchased it for $350 per square foot. I have not seen a $350 per square foot property since 2009, 2010. We are already here. The discounts are already here. It's not as widespread. So I think that we hopefully potentially got lucky with this one purchase. But if you were to if you were to raise $1 billion fund around a 60, 50, 60, 70% discount from 2019 pricings, it's going to be extremely difficult to place that capital. And that is because of competition. But as far as price is concerned in office, Midtown, we are down, I would say, you'll see in the reports 30%. It's a little worse than that. I believe that we're down maybe 40% on average. It's very hard, again, to find properties that are at a 40% discount. So what you read in the newspaper headlines, pricing down, values down. Yeah, but when it comes to it and you're like, great, I believe I'm willing to pay 60 cents on the dollar, willing to pay even 70 cents on the dollar. It's very hard to shake these things loose because of the types of owners and because of the lending landscape from 2010 onwards as far as loan to value. So yeah, I think it's a very opportunistic time. I think for people that are looking to buy their homes, I think that we're looking to buy a house, my family. It's not as easy. It's not as easy because inventory is down. So we're going to see, if you're looking for a regular house, a single family home for you and your family, people are not willing to let go of their 2.5, 2.9%, 30-year fixed mortgage that they refinanced in 21 or 2020, or even, in 2019, 3.5%. Why would they refinance right now, even if their value of their home went up 30%, 50%, whatever it may have been? They're not letting go of that because where are they going to go? So we're having an inventory issue with single family homes throughout the country. Ironically, Texas being one of the greatest stories of the 2020 so far, Austin, Dallas, Houston, so on and so forth, they are actually, a lot of the new home developers are actually now getting worried that they're being overbuilt. So you really have to look at your local market to really understand. But in the tri-state area, New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, Westchester, anywhere, really, there's a lot of people are not willing to put their homes on the market. And if they are, it's going to be at such a premium that it doesn't make sense. So even though we're hearing about values and prices coming down, it's not going to be so easy to pick up these great deals because there was a lot of cheap money, and people are not going to, why would anyone do that if your mortgage is $3,000 a month and you hit the jackpot? But now when you buy your new place for the same home, you're going to be paying, $6,000 or $5,000 a month, and people are just not willing to do that.
Do you get a sense that the inventory issues in housing are worse than the commercial real estate side?
So, okay, when you say worse, if I was a residential...
Well, tighter, I guess.
I'm sorry?
Well, tighter, I guess, would be the way to think about it.
So definitely commercial real estate is in much worse shape, in my opinion, than the single family home. And that's because wages have increased in addition to home pricing. So if you purchased the home before 2021, even if the value of your home decreases 10, 12%, it's really about your monthly mortgage. Now, if there's mass layoffs, and right now there's a trickling of layoffs happening, but if there's mass layoffs like we've seen in 2008, which I don't think that this is similar to that, and then people can't pay their monthly mortgage, then that will become an issue. But different compared to 2009, where it was, and I walked into the bank, a ninja loan, and I just verbally told them, this is how much I make. And they did no background check. And I got a 6% loan based on verbal, just all verbal. And then I signed the documents. And so people were buying 4 homes, 3 homes based on these ninja loans. So we're definitely the single family. I feel that the single family world is not going to see some kind of 20 to 40% discount in pricing. And the last time we had an inflationary period nationwide for housing from 1979 to 1982, housing only declined 12%. So, are we similar to 1979, 1982? Maybe. And if we are, and I think that things were a lot worse back then, potentially with the inflationary environment and the interest rate environment, our parents probably paid 12% or 15% mortgages. I mean, it was pretty insane. But housing with that inflationary period only decreased 12% nationwide. Now, does that mean this time we may not touch a negative 20% nationwide value? Maybe. But, compared to 2008, let's say from 2006 to 2010, or in the housing market, actually, it took a long time for housing prices to decline. 2006 was the peak, and the bottom was 2013 for nationwide housing. And the decline was 30%. So, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It took many years for the market to unwind. And so, and the same thing may happen here. If indeed 2021 was the peak of the housing, of the single family housing, we're not really going to know where the bottom is on average. It probably takes 3 to 4 years for us to find the bottom. So we're talking 24, 25 before we can truly understand where this market is. And because we're the number one economy, is such a big economy, it takes so long. It takes so long for things to shake out. So we really don't know, and people want to guess how bad will a housing be. I don't see, and the word, the clickbait on every business magazine you will see, or any YouTube, is housing crisis, crash, all kind. You guys got to understand one thing, and that is that they sit around thinking, how do we get more eyeballs on this article? How do we get more eyes on this video clip, on this piece of news? And so they have to sensationalize it, and they have to say housing crash, or whatever that may be. But on a day-to-day basis, I think that interest rates, and we'll see. I don't know how much further the 30-year fixed mortgage will go up. If people talked about, call coming in 2 months ago, people were basically saying, we're going to see a 10% interest rate environment. What does that, put that in your business plan? What does your world look like at a 10% interest, 30-year fixed interest rate environment? And I did that. And I was like, all right, so any real player in the market, and a lot of people are going to be sidelined for a long time, and it'll be a disaster. But I don't know. History tells us that it takes 4 or 5 years to hit the bottom, and from peak to peak, it's something like 10 years. So for anyone that's expecting a fast single family sort of like, I'm going to buy, and no, it takes a decade before we'll see 2021 pricing, in my opinion, depending on how, and it could be less, it could be 7 years. But then after that, we have always gotten more expensive, and prices throughout history has always increased in value regardless of where you are. Maybe Detroit Detroit, I'm sorry for anyone from Detroit. Maybe Detroit is the only one that had a long-term sort of cloud as far as real estate and commercial real estate pricing. But we have always gotten more for our real estate in the long term. And I think that is the main thing to pay attention to. If you can get a home for yourself and your family, think long term. And that will eventually, in your 60s and 70s or whatever it may be, that will be one of your greatest assets. And I still believe in that. And in addition to this, if you guys strive to own a property, or a single family property, wherever it is that you are, I truly do believe that institutional buyers, and if you pay special attention to this, that the amount of institutional buyers that are going to come to market over the next decade is going to be staggering. And they don't have $1 million budget. They have a $5 billion budget for the next investment period for their fund, which is maybe 2 years, or if it's a longer term strategy for 10 years, whatever. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars of institutional capital that is going to be gunning for single families. And I think that is going to be the biggest threat to retail homeowners is that the affordability of these homes are just it's going to be harder and harder and harder. And that's the investment thesis for the funds and for the institutional investors. They're saying Gen Z, our moms, our dads, they bought a home in their 20s or in their early 30s, and they raised the kids. And now maybe millennials, it takes a lot longer, late 30s, whatever it may be. We're the next generation. I don't know. It may be in their mid 40s before they're able to. And that's okay. That's okay. But it's just the length of time the average American will enjoy their forever home. It's getting shorter and shorter because of affordability. So I think that's.
Yeah, and I was going to go in that direction because I think talk about clickbait, right? The institutional crowding out is something that scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
At what point do you think that really is going to be a problem? I mean, and when I say problem, I'm talking about where you might have people basically asking the government to prevent the institutions from coming in to swoop up homes that they want to buy.
I'm not sure. We're still in the single digits. It's still about 4% of all homes are institutionally purchased. But look at the iBuying phenomenon. If they get that right, if Zillow gets that actually right, and they're just based on AI, based on just data, general data, and they figure out how to purchase these things sight unseen, that 3-4% could quickly get to 10% and quickly get to 15%. And then the whole point is, I don't see a world where it's 30% institutionally owned as far as every single family in a single family home in America. But we're just seeing that. And that's just a general trend. In general, all the office buildings 50 years ago were family owned. Wealthy individuals, family owned. And now it's something like 45%, in Manhattan are institutionally owned. Can that happen nationwide? The same as industrial. It was 100% family owned years ago, or the large corporations used it for their own headquarters, but not as a third party investment vehicle. So I don't know. Maybe I think all along the way it could be. Even when we touch 10%, that means that's definitely a lot of institutionally owned homes nationwide.
Everybody here, please make sure you follow Chris Okada on Twitter. Very thoughtful and very knowledgeable, obviously, and is kind enough to spend time with us to talk about current trends he's seeing. Again, my name is Michael Gaia. This will be available on all your favorite podcast platforms. So, Chris, I got to ask, obviously, you're involved a bit in the crypto space, and I see you're linking that to property. I don't know exactly the link, but talk through some of the stuff that you've been doing as far as Ethereum, real estate, pricing in Ethereum, whatever it may be.
Yeah, sure. So I definitely hail from the world of real estate and commercial real estate, high technical real estate. I played around with Bitcoin in 2017, 2018 as a sort of side investment. And, it did what it did, and it keeps up and down. But this iteration, I would say the last couple of years, and we're definitely in a crypto winter. FTX is everywhere, and the ripple effects of FTX is staggering in general about the evolution of cryptocurrency and anything Web3. However, I deal with contracts every single day, whether it's acquisition, mortgage contracts, whether it's lease, sophisticated lease contracts, whatever it is, contracts all day long. And someone brought me this concept, I would say in early 21, about the NFTs, non-fungible tokens. I go, great, I understand. But they broke it down as a smart contract. When I understood, and I took a little bit of a deep dive into the actual smart contract, essentially the technology of a smart contract is the same as any contract, except it's a digitalized version, and then it is recording of the smart contract cannot be destroyed. So that technology, I thought it was fascinating, and I thought was very, very interesting. Now there's an argument that you don't need smart, you don't need a smart contract. Regular contracts are absolutely fine. DocuSign is fine. But there's definitely something there. And we're very, 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 very early in the world of real estate X Web3. And when I have a moment, when I really have sort of figured it out, and the Web3 community and the Web3 technology sort of works itself out, it's still in its infancy. There's a bridge between acquiring or real estate contracts with the smart contract technology. And it's just changing the way contracts are done. So essentially, in summer of 22, I purchased a property in Midtown Manhattan, and we listed it. We listed it as an NFT for $30 million or something. Initially, it was like 15,000 ETH, and then we had to relist it. But we were the first people to list a office building for sale as an NFT, and we used the platform OpenSea. And this thing went to the moon and back. I never did. I try all kinds of social media, and for anyone in business, you got to do some social media. Michael does great on Twitter, but this thing went to the moon. We had 880 million impressions, and 60 news media companies reached out to me in a week and a half. So for 2 weeks, I had 15 minutes of fame in the sort of crypto world. But I knew I was onto something when I saw all these numbers come in on my caller ID. And it was a gentleman in Norway. And it was, I would like to say, 8 hours after I posted this. And he wrote this whole, he was a journalist, and he wrote this whole article on that and on the Twitterverse. So I probably had Twitter for like well over a decade, but never really used it. But then the Twitterverse started going crazy, and really everyone in the NFT and crypto community, they're all looking for utility. They're all looking for real use of of buying crypto, of having Bitcoin. Other than having money, it's the actual value of the Bitcoin itself. They want to figure out a use for this. So when I did this, it was no one. I mean, it was a wild sort of thing. No landlord really would take a building and just list it for Ethereum, and I chose Ethereum for various reasons. And so when I did that, this is for anyone that's involved in truly involved in the world of cryptocurrency. If you're not involved, this will be just something interesting for you, or it may not apply to you ever. But there are the real estate transaction itself. We are professionals at this. Anyone else, there's a lot of smart people out there, but this is what we do every single day, for 20 years, 50 years. So the actual real estate transaction is quite messy. For anyone that actually has purchased a home and you got a mortgage, how many documents did you sign? And when you're at closing, do you even know what you're signing, or is your lawyer like, sign here, sign here, sign here? You probably signed 40 pieces of papers, all of which you had no idea. And I'm a professional, but when I bought my first property or my first apartment, my starter home, I didn't even know what I was signing. I just signed the bank documents and the legal documents. And it's a very, very messy, long, and unclear transaction. And for many people, that's the biggest transaction of their life. So, how do we make that process easier? Is Web3, does crypto, does this sort of smart contract technology take out some of that guesswork, make it more seamless? And what about the recording process? So, essentially, that's the bridge that I want to explore. And I feel, though, even though we're in a crypto sort of winter, that it's the actual blockchain technology is very, very fascinating. The smart contract technology is really, really interesting. And there will be, and there has been a couple of case studies, I would say a handful, where you can purchase a property as an NFT. And for that to happen, though, you basically create an LLC. The LLC purchases the home or the property, and then the NFT represents ownership interest into that LLC. Just that one simple thing, we've triggered the city or county clerks. We've triggered IRS issues. We've triggered SEC issues. We there's so many governmental agencies that were triggered, and so that's why it's very much in its infancy, where there's no rules about how to treat an NFT, how to treat crypto. If it's a security and it becomes more regulated, that is a huge thing for anyone in the Web3 real estate space. Because it's regulated, there will be rules. We created a petition with the SEC to find out. We need them to issue rules on the use of NFTs, on the use of smart contracts, on the use of cryptocurrencies, and they have, I don't know, it's shelved somewhere. But we did send a petition. We started a petition with the SEC. And I think that that's something interesting. Will it help you now? I don't think so. Do we need the technology? Maybe not. Probably not yet. But there's something there. And the whole point of this conversation is definitely that there's a new technology and there's a new way of recording things. And in the event that things get a lot more structured and there's more oversight, we're probably going to see some really interesting things happening in the Web3 space as far as real estate transactions. And that's kind of what I'm sort of thinking about, in addition to everything else.
Let's go to some of the audience.
Yeah. So essentially, what we had to do, there was disclaimers everywhere. OpenSea themselves have restrictions on selling real estate, and the way we got around that is that this was actually a placeholder. So if someone purchased a $30 million property or spent 26,500 ETH at the time, we would not touch it just yet. We had to verify before they send the funds, because you have to KYC in real estate is everything. Because our firm and our background, we can't just collect money from random people. We really have to understand and we have KYC protocol. So before, if they bid on it, that's great, but we would have to communicate with them offline and have a regular real estate transaction. Well, at that time, it was a 30-day listing. And to be honest, it was supposed to be a seamless transaction to our wallet. So that's what the time it lived on their server should be very, very short lived. Also, just as a heads up, the highest bid we received was $1,500. So, nowhere near, but it was just a sort of test to see all of these things. And for sure, security, fraud, human error were definitely the top three things of this case study. Now, will in the future someone sell a 30, 50, $100 million property on a marketplace like OpenSea? Maybe. But, again, this case study was really just to see the viability of two things. One, the crypto community. Do they really have all this money? What kind, what's the use case of this? And two, to shake things out like that. We didn't actually know or think there was a 1% chance that some crypto billionaire would buy this property, and that's why we had that protocol beforehand. They would have to call us first. We can't just take money or accept any money like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, maybe for the remaining few minutes here, Chris, and again, everybody, please follow Chris. What are some of the things that you think people are not focusing enough attention on? Either new trends or new risks or new whatever it is. I always like to ask that question because those that are in the field will always know the nuances more than everybody else.
Yeah. So as far as things that they're not paying attention to or strategies that they should?
Yeah, both.
Okay. Yeah. I think that it would be, it's definitely a great time if you have to purchase. I think let's talk about a single family home or an apartment. Definitely do so. But this is the market that you will get away with being like, yeah, I know you want $1 million. What do you think about 800,000? Literally taking 20% off. Now, this is for people that actually do, just in case things get bad, just in case things get a lot worse. You're going to probably want to price in a 20%, 15% discount from the 2021 pricing. Also, second to that, for anyone that's renting, I feel for you. It is absolutely bananas and bonkers. This tri-state area, whether Long Island, Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, Connecticut, New Jersey, all across the board, rents are up like 20%. I mean, I don't know if you guys are seeing that, but just so you know that that rental increase is slowly coming down. So the rents are finally going to definitely come down. I 100% am a long-term believer in saving money every single month for that deposit, for that down payment, especially if you are thinking longer terms. So this week, we unveiled our strategy for 2023. We have a vision for 2028. And I think that you guys should all have that. You should really, really have that. Now, this is a little separate from real estate, but for sure, 100%. If you want to buy a house, if you want to buy a real estate property, if you want to buy a glass tower, and the exercise is all the same, you have to give yourself a deadline. You have to give yourself a deadline. Let's say it's January 1, 2028. This is fresh because I did this to every single person in our firm. January 1, 2028. This is what we're doing. 100%. I have my home. I want a 5,000 square foot Mediterranean style home, 40 minutes from Manhattan, 3-car garage, etc., etc. Other people said, I want rental properties. I want this. I want to get married. Whatever it may be. And then you have to work backwards and reverse engineer that and then have 2023 financial goals and life goals set up for that future self. I think it's a simple exercise, but I just think that people go through life without truly having a vision and truly understanding that if you do want that house, it may take a little bit more time, However, what is your plan? So I think that is not necessarily the real estate thing, but for business, for personal investing, even if you're a day trader, whatever it is that you do, you got to have a vision. And if real estate is definitely part of that, what does that mean about the next 12 months? What does that mean about the next 8 months? And I think that is probably the one thing that everyone in the real estate industry does. It's as far as projections are concerned, all the business presentations, all the pitch decks for every property has a business plan. And year end right now, I'm sure you do this too, Michael. It's year in review 2022. and also to see what we're doing in 2023 as far as budgets and targets and all of that stuff. And the same thing absolutely goes for your personal investments. And I think that's the number one takeaway. I think that, if you turn off the TV a little bit, you stop reading the clickbait, you stop worrying. Our society loves pumping fear into the market. Even in 2018, I just had one of those flashback sort of Facebook things. Even in 2018, there was no pandemic, prices were great. Homes were affordable. Interest rates were good. And still there was a potential governmental shutdown, debt ceiling. There's always going to be something. So definitely I would create a habit of shutting off the news and work on the information that you have today. And 100% that goes for real estate. For anyone, especially if you are in commercial real estate or real estate in generally, if you're in residential real estate, if you're a realtor or you're a commercial real estate investor, I would love to speak with you. I would love to see what's happening in your submarket. This year, I was chairperson of the Asian Real Estate Association of America. We are in 40 states throughout the country. It's really amazing. It's really, really amazing what's happening in this market. For realtors, for residential real estate agents, they were kicking butt in 2020. Some people were kicking butt in 21 like never before. They were waiting 20 years for their city, for their submarket. And then this year, it's a fall. The party's over. So I'm just really interested. If you guys reach out to me, would love to hear from you. And one last tidbit, one last takeaway, one last tidbit is in 1979 to 1982, the banks, all the large banks, they started offering a lot more interest only products. So if interest rates do remain at a 6.5% on an interest only basis compared to a 30-year fixed, you're somewhere at the 5% range. So, you're not making principal payments, which is the long-term appreciation. But if you have to buy a home today, I would 100% be very careful with this product that the bank lends to you, but I would go for some portion or all of it to be an interest only. They will not give you 30 years, obviously, of interest only. But the banks will start responding to the consumer's request, and the banks will start competing with each other about what kind of products they can give the general public. And be very careful. The whole point of this, if it's 7 years interest only, or it's an ARM product or whatever, you have to be very, 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 I would put it in your calendar, refinance no matter what, if it goes from a fixed to a variable rate, because that's a trap. But if you have to purchase, look for an interest only option that covers you for 3, 4, 5 years. And I think that is one major takeaway that people are overlooking every single day. Talk to your bank. Go to Wells Fargo. Go to Bank of America. Ask them, do you have anything interest only? Let me know about your ARM products, and you'll be surprised. It's not so bad. And then they'll let you know this is what you. But that's if you really, really need to purchase. And then second to that, again, is offer. This is the only market. Every decade, we're given 2 years. 9/11 in New York City. Everyone wanted out of Manhattan. Everyone wanted out of New York City. It was unfortunately, in 21, 22, that era, great time to purchase. In the during the financial crisis, it was in 2008 a great time to purchase. It was a good time in 2009 and 10. Your market may be different, but in the New York, tri-state area, you're given 2 years, maybe 3 years, a decade, where affordability is here, where prices come down. By the end of that decade, we're higher than ever. and now things are really expensive. And I thought that we weren't going to see that. I did not think that we were going to see price appreciation like the 90s in Queens or in Brooklyn or in the city. I did not. Our parents bought homes, for $30,000. 4 years later, they sold it for $120,000. Crazy stuff like that. I didn't think we would see that. We saw that from 2019 to 21. So I think that's it. I have no more saliva. I've been talking.
No, this is good. No, and usually I do spaces more in public markets, but I think this was definitely worthwhile. Everybody, please follow Chris. And again, this will be available as a podcast soon enough. Chris, we'll talk. It's been a while. I'm glad we connected here, but we'll chat privately. Thanks, Chris.